A man in a trench coat in the dark. A woman's lost a kid sleeping in the park. Rag suits, daggers, Park Avenue. Everybody wants to talk to you about just some BS of there. Just some BS. Just some BS of yours. Just some BS. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS of ours.
Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Just Some BS podcast. I'm your host along this wild and crazy journey, the American Nick, joined as always by the man with a plan, the beer doctor himself.
I'm not your dog.
Radaman.
I'm not a lily. Listen there, Cletus, the soldiers. Before we did this, he said, and then when you do your song and then play it on cue when I say enjoy us by it. No, A, I'm not your dog, and B, the entire principle of this podcast is that we don't do planning.
That's obvious.
That is obvious, and that is part of its charm and part of its appeal to no one. Anyway, it's a world full of happenings. So
cheer up, Brian. You know what they say? Some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse. When you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life.
What's Monty Python's history of suing people?
I don't know, but at least that might get us sued, which will be nice. I'm not really...
I imagine being sued by Monty Python, I mean, in terms of being sued by people, is probably one of the nicer things. I mean, at least...
We'd get a chance to meet them, because they'd come to court, probably get an autograph.
Probably lawyers, but at least, at least I would imagine the cease and desist letter would be at least funny. I'd be disappointed if it isn't. Obviously, when it does come, listener, you'll be the first one to, third one
to read it,
to know, because we'll read it out on air unless it says don't do that.
Well, we'll still read it out on air, because what are they going to do? They're already suing us once, so we might as well just get sued twice. What's the worst thing that can happen? They'll come after us for even more money that we don't have?
Maybe they'll cease the website now. That would be a tragedy.
and all the polls,
polls? What did the polls have to do?
Well,
have you outsourced our website or something?
No, but we have people from Poland, Prague, and for some reason San Francisco that go to the website quite often. I'm not sure why so many people from San Francisco are going to the website, but it's entertaining.
Drugs. I think I think we found basically we're the Grateful Dead of podcasts, or fish, where a normal human mind just cannot appreciate the lack of quality of this podcast, and you need to be really fucking baked to actually
That might make sense, because there's a lot as well that comes in from like Austin and Baton Rouge in Louisiana. So Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a lot of drinking. Austin is the San Francisco of the mid.
I'm surprised we don't have any Russian listeners.
Well, we have never said anything bad about Putin yet, so...
Oh, you have, repeatedly.
Well, no, I constantly just say that Putin is Donnie's daddy, and Donnie sits on his lap and says, "Yes, Dad, I'll do whatever you want to."
He's kind of, I mean, by the looks of it, he's kind of everybody's daddy at this point. I mean, he seems to have... It seems...
Speaking of which, for once, Theresa May decided she was going to step out from the crowd.
I don't understand what... I mean, are you referring to her sort of saying that, you know, that now everything in British politics is controlled by Russia? I mean, yes. I don't quite understand... I mean, I don't understand the motivation. Is she trying to say, all this incompetence, you see, that's not us. That's the Russians. I'm barely at Downing Street. There's just some Russian dude sitting behind a computer writing emails. Or is, I mean, does she kind of... It sounds to me, and we'll go into this a bit later when we discuss today's country, but it's a bit like the slightly awkward kid at school, doesn't quite fit in, but really, really wants to. Because, you know, there's the awkward kids at school that are happy being awkward and, you know, enjoy their singularity, so to speak. Then there's the kids that are just awkward kids that are just a little bit dull and they try very hard to fit in, but they're always a little bit late. So, you know, these are the people who would, you know, like be goth in the early noughties. or you know, emo now.
Yeah, they're about a day late and a buck short on everything they do.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. And this is Theresa May sort of going, oh, everyone's doing this Russia thing. I can do that. Yeah, Britain is just Russian. All of it. Everything is Russian.
Well, it caught me off guard because I was thinking about it and I said, okay, well, you've been a very prominent supporter of Brexit, but now you're saying that Russia meddled with Brexit.
Oh no! See, this is where you get wrong. Theresa May campaigned for Remain.
Okay.
So she is against Brexit.
Ah, okay.
But wants to deliver it in the worst possible way. I mean, I can't see what you don't understand about this very simple setup.
Yeah, because she is failing miserably.
I do believe, and I'm not entirely sure whether we can say this, but I wouldn't be surprised
allegedly.
If...
Hold on, allegedly? Because if you say allegedly, you can't get sued for anything.
Well, no, I mean, it's speculation, pure and simple. But I assume, like, you know, at Downing Street, I would imagine that there's a floor in the basement, and this is the Prime Minister's room.
Why in the basement?
I guess the rest of the house is used for like public functions, etc. as a representative. And, you know, Downing Street is Downing Street, and it has to maintain a certain decorum. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a room at Downing Street, which every Prime Minister just gets to do in the way they want. I would imagine, you know, Tony Blair would have a music room there with instruments, soundproof, and just rock out with his buddies, you know, playing music. Gordon Brown would just have it wallpapered with spreadsheets. David Cameron would just have list of his children's names so that he wouldn't forget them at the pub. And I wouldn't be surprised, allegedly, purely speculatively, if Theresa May didn't have an S&M sex dungeon down there with just leather and ball gags and whips and all that, because she seems to be quite masochistic, considering that, you know, she... What? You're looking at me as if... What?
Oh, you're on an island now. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Okay, so she said masochistic. Okay.
Okay, so we have...
been hacked by the Russians.
We have been hacked by the Russians. We have removed Bir Doktoroyevich, and it's back to regular programming. Theresa May's hair is nice. So Mugabe. For those of you who don't know, is there's a country in Africa called Zimbabwe. It's famous for producing pretty much 90% of the world's supply of monopoly money. Yeah.
Been run by the same guy for, what, 60 years or so? 37
years. Okay. It's kind of... See, this is the bizarre thing. it's kind of weird thinking that one person has ruled a country. Not even like, like the Queen, because she doesn't really rule the country.
No, she's just a figurehead.
She's a symbolic thing.
Yes.
But this guy has actually ruled...
Made decisions.
A country through his own iron will for longer than I have been alive. And I have been alive for a bit now. I mean, frankly, it's getting a bit tiresome, as we've discussed earlier. But this guy has actually ruled a country. When I was born, I chopped the sort of walls of the uterus of my mother and crawled out, and slid out, shot out of through the cervix, and went, "What's up?" and he was already ruling a country.
Yes.
And now I'm at the age where I could be impregnating people. A lot of people my age have their own kids, and this guy's still ruling it well. Not anymore.
Well, not as of this morning, but
but he was. That's quite impressive. But anyway, so yes, President Mugabe rules maybe Zimbabwe along with his pop idol wife Grace Kelly.
Yeah, over the course of the last 4 days, it's been an interesting roller coaster ride in Zimbabwe with a first call that said that he was being overthrown in a military coup, only to have him put out a report saying, "No, I'm fine and safe, and I'm still in power." And this was all sparked off by him firing his vice president, which I find so amazing that you can do that. I guess when you rule a country for 37 years, you're allowed to just fire the vice president.
But the beautiful, well, not really beautiful, but I mean, it's quite fascinating just how fickle power is. Because to me, Mugabe, let's face it, he did not rule Zimbabwe very well.
No.
I dare guess that a magic 8-ball statistically would actually rule the country better than Robert Mugabe.
No, you could have flipped a fucking coin.
Or not even flip. It's like the Homer Simpson, the Simpsons episode where Homer gets the sort of bird that just presses one button. Mm-hmm. That would rule Zimbabwe better than just pick yes or no, and every question anyone ever asks you, just say yes or no, and just keep that doing consistently, and probably the country would be better off being an anarchist state without government. The country would be better ruled by an octopus.
Well, we did learn that octopi are very, very intelligent, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what I find... So, it's not a well-run country, is what I'm saying. And he's managed to stay in power for 37 years. Now, that to me, as an outsider, gives the impression that this man must be bloody terrifying. Yeah. And incredibly iron-willed. I mean, this man controlled... I mean, they were printing trillion-dollar bills. And he stayed in power, and no one. I mean, there was a few dodgy elections, and then there was the opposition thing, about 10 years ago, blah blah blah. But I mean, more or less, the man remained in power, and no one piped up. No one said anything. So I assumed that his power is absolute. And then all of a sudden, the guy goes, as he must have done a million times before in his life, goes, "I don't like that person. Take him away, please." And the next day, he's changed to his toilet and can't leave the house and power no more because the army goes, mate, no, we guns. I mean, why not? What? I mean, that must be...
But it could be something that comes along with as society continues to grow, and whether or not the internet is good or bad is still up in the air. In reality...
It's in the cloud.
Well, the debate is still out as far as whether or not the internet is a good thing.
It doesn't matter it's a good or bad thing. It just is. It's like you can't say whether irrigation is a good or a bad thing. It just is. You deal with it. It's there.
True. But with it finally arriving in Zimbabwe, maybe the people of Zimbabwe have decided that, you know what? There's scarier people out here than him, and plus he's an old man, so yeah, we're just done.
I have to say, I mean, the one thing I did admire about Mugabe, he remained pretty good looking until his late age. It's just over the past few years, I think for me, he has lost a bit of his style, a bit of his oomph. Kind of let himself go a little bit.
Yeah, it's just senile.
But Just Some BS podcast, giving you the latest fashion news of deposed dictators.
Look, with all the turbulence that's going on globally,
Wow.
it's interesting to see that our old friend who was over in China and then went to go kiss the ring is still keeping his same tract of complete and utter fuckery.
What has he done this time?
Well, between his... I talked to the people in China, and I got those UCLA players. I got them released. And will I get a thank you? Probably not.
UCLA players?
So 3 UCLA players were in Shanghai. UCLA was playing a basketball game, because China actually is huge fans of basketball.
Yeah.
It's very, very big over there. They like very tall people, maybe. I don't know why, but the NBA's biggest new demographic that they can reach out to is China. And so they have college players go there and they put on exhibition games. And they put on an exhibition game there. And for those of you who don't know, most college players, check that, all college athletes across the board, they don't get paid anything to be a college player. You get a scholarship.
Yeah.
Well, most of them come from, let's just be completely honest, not the greatest upbringings there's ever been. So a couple of players were out walking around China and decided to shoplift.
Okay.
And they were caught because 6 foot tall guys walking around China kind of stand out in a crowd. Kind of easy to see them.
I can see what you're saying.
Yes. And so they were caught, and they were, for theft in China, you were looking at about a 10-year prison sentence.
Right.
And Donald Trump had said that he spoke to the president and said, let's just take care of that. We'll get them back to Los Angeles and I'll smooth everything out. Because, Donnie's the deal maker. So he made the deal and he got him free and then had to go on Twitter, and because he only speaks when it's on Twitter or when he says it's fake news.
So let me get this straight. These were people...
Yeah.
In a country,
Yep.
that broke the country's law,
Yep.
and were through it. There wasn't a conspiracy. They
Nope.
weren't framed.
Nope.
They broke the law,
Uh-huh.
and they were put to prison.
Well, they were going to be. It would have been.
Going to be put to prison for breaking that law,
Yeah.
And the society's rules,
Mhm.
of which they were very aware. Because I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, or you legal experts from across the United States, but I would imagine that theft is technically not illegal in the States, unless you're really rich.
Yes, theft is illegal in the U.S.
Yeah. So it's not a stretch. It's not like you go to Kazakhstan and not realize that there's a ban on mankinis, which there is. But that's, most countries don't have mankini bans.
Okay.
So I can understand you go in Kazakhstan and you go to the beach, which it doesn't have, and then you wear your mankini like you do when you're in Alabama, and then get in trouble for it. I can understand. I can sympathize. But I mean, theft is I think
Universally.
Aside from perhaps Somalia, theft is, I think, illegal pretty much everywhere. Somalia, for those of you who don't know, is pretty much an anarchic state at the moment.
Yeah.
As it has been for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
30 years. Time flies. So, anyway, these guys go to prison for breaking a fairly obvious law.
Mm-hmm.
And then Donald Trump, whom I believe is still the US president. Let me refresh BBC News. Yep, still is. No army takeover. Guys in your sort of base. Where was the base? Georgia somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, chaps, look at Zimbabwe. What are you waiting for? Just put him out of his misery. Anyway, so Donald Trump, who is still president of the United States as we speak, might not be the case by the time this episode airs, went to China.
For other reasons.
For other reasons,
Yes.
of course. And then said, I know what I'll do. We'll not punish criminals.
Yeah.
And then came back to the United States and opened his calculator and started screaming at it, which he believes is how a computer and Twitter works. And then an aide next to him actually typed it on an actual computer and pasted it on Twitter and presented it as a good thing.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this guy?
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because also what was released this week was Donald Trump Jr.'s WikiLeaks DMs, in which WikiLeaks had sent DMs telling Donnie Jr. when to have his dad talk about specific things during the election having to do with the Russian tampering.
Speaking of Donald J, and that's bad. Can I just say that Donald Trump Jr. is a fucking asshole?
Oh, the elephant thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing.
I'm not saying allegedly.
He is an asshole.
Come and get me. Donald Trump Jr. is a fucking asshole.
Oh, he's a punk little bitch.
I mean, the whole animal trophy thing's fine, but who the hell goes someplace? I mean, when I go outside, I take a walk, and I might end up at a pub, and I consider that a successful outing.
As long as you make it home.
How sick is somebody's brain to go out with a gun, shoot an animal, and cut its tail off, and then pose for a picture with it? I mean, I know there's, people like hunting, etc. But let me repeat this in the simple terms. This person flew across an ocean, sat in a car, saw an endangered animal.
Well, do you know how they do the hunting for those endangered animals, right?
With guns.
Oh, yeah, but it's a bit different than that. What they'll do is they'll take the carcass of an animal that they've already killed, usually an elephant, and drag it behind a truck. Because elephants, because of their nature of being caring, will go to try to help the injured elephant, thus bringing them into view in order to be able to shoot them. And they're doing this on an actual, what would be considered a zoo.
What is wrong with these people?
I can only go back to me, and this is something I thought about the other day as well.
It's not even like a deer that's fast. I can see. Look, I'm not. Call me mentally balanced, but I'm not one to kill creatures generally. But fine, I can see the sport in a deer. It's fast. It's quick. You have to be patient. It's not difficult to shoot an elephant. Familiar with the saying "elephant in the room"? That saying isn't there because elephants are small or quick. It's because they're big
and slow
and static. What's the skill in shooting that?
None.
I mean, unless Donald Trump Jr. is genuinely handicapped in some way, and this is like a feel-good field trip. Oh look, even little Donnie can shoot animals. I don't see what the allure is in shooting an elephant.
There is no allure. After the backlash that came out, which Donnie Jr. made sure that he got onto Twitter and was talking about how it's his dad, probably somebody in his dad's office said, hey, your kid's already in enough trouble with this WikiLeaks thing, so let's backpedal, because Obama had made it, had an executive order that said it was illegal to hunt endangered species for Americans.
I'm glad this had to be an executive order rather than Congress or the Senate.
Well, of course, Congress and Senate wouldn't, because Anna Ray run the Congress and Senate. Do you not remember anything about our Las Vegas shooting episode? Come on now. The NRA is in charge. America just lives underneath it.
That's fake news. Fake news. That didn't happen.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, Alex Jones. So he had written an executive order. Trump had said that he was going to overturn that executive order because, I don't know, his kid should be allowed to shoot whatever he wants to because it's a Make-A-Wish type thing. I don't know. The backlash came back, and so he went to Twitter and said, we're going to look into it prior to overthrowing this I need to get a bit more information about it before doing it. So somebody told him, hey, this is probably a bad thing, and your kid shouldn't be in the spotlight right now because he is being deeply investigated by Mueller, and he is guilty of conspiracy. He just is. That's not alleged. That's not anything else. That's actual conspiracy proven through DMs from him. And the minute that Wiki said, hey, your dad should talk about this, Trump tweeted about it right after that. So there is collusion there. That's actually proven now collusion. So it's very interesting to see now that everybody's like, oh, they're talking about this and they're talking about that, and it doesn't mean anything. No, it actually does. When there's smoke, there's fire. It's physically impossible to have smoke without fire in this sense now. In this sense. It's all tied together. It's just very devious, very... Now it gets into what kind of plausible deniability did he have, because that's kind of the... You always don't tell the president everything because you want that plausible deniability, but Trump is a hands-on kind of guy. We know he's a hands-on kind of guy.
He likes to grab him.
By the pussy. That's not alleged. He said it. Which then leads over to potential Democratic candidate for 2020.
Mark Zuckerberg.
No, not Mark Zuckerberg. Al Franken. Senator from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Who, during a USO tour...
Yeah, I know. But I saw the picture, and he's not actually groping anyone.
Well, he's holding a flat jacket.
He's gesticulating to us. But no, but if you look at it, it's not like his...
Exactly.
He's not touching her.
Al was smart enough to come forward and say that, yes, an investigation should take place if I was in any way in the wrong. You know, I can't apologize to the woman because no matter how many times I apologize to her, it's not going to make a difference. I understand that.
She did accept the apology, though.
But even still, he said that doesn't matter. Let's do an investigation. Let's find out what's going on because I'd rather have all this out in the open.
Yeah.
Which, in today's day, and the way that sexual harassment accusers are coming forward now because of everything that happened with Harvey Weinstein, I mean, this is something where... Could Bill Clinton have been elected during this era?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting... we say it every single week. The world is a very interesting and exciting time to be alive.
Is Al Franken seriously the Democratic candidate?
Hopeful for 2020?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Biden is the be-all, end-all. Because Biden is everyone... Like, everybody loves Biden. Biden's just... He's intelligent. He didn't run because of, his son passing away and everything else. So there was all that going on. But with how...
He's also quite old, though, isn't
Yeah, but, I mean, he's not even as old as Trump.
Yeah,
Trump is a grandpa. I mean, that's the senile thing. The other thing that came out this week that was absolutely fabulous is, and it was so great to read, former National Security Advisor said, and I quote, actually... individuals that run the nuclear arms, i.e. the people that are in charge, the ones that press the buttons, have the right to say, nah. So he can try to push the buttons. He can give all the codes. He can do whatever he wants to launch the codes, but there is a moral authority to where they don't actually have to follow those orders, which is very shocking to understand because if you know about anything about the military, you do exactly as you're told. That's how you raise. But there's a loophole that says, and I quote, if somebody in the Defense Department believes that the powers that be are acting erratically, they have the right to stop any such attack. So it makes me feel a little bit safer.
Yes, I mean, and it makes sense, which probably is going to be why it's going to be abolished, this sort of check. But I can see, I'm beginning to see a way out of this situation.
Way out of what situation?
Of Donald Trump existing. Or, having influence on things. I'm not saying go Lincoln on him.
Wow.
It's Big Dr. Ayevich again. Get back
Secret Service, we were in no way at all saying anything having to do with
get
that.
back in the box with Hitler.
Yes. We were just saying that there was a way for him to no longer be in power.
No, he's still be in power. I mean, I see two ways. I see two ways on how to do it. One, chaps in Georgia.
Coup.
No.
Not even a coup?
No.
Okay.
What you're forgetting, Nick,
Yes.
is that what's happening in Zimbabwe is not a coup.
Well, they say it's not a coup.
But technically it's not.
Okay.
Because, and this is the thing, because, you know, and I can see, you know, I don't know if you've seen the African Union statement on the situation in Zimbabwe, but that's the most reluctant condemnation I have ever read, because they technically can't say yay, because...
You can't really.
Because it sets a bad precedent. You know, you have to condemn a coup, but you could sense that they're not exactly majorly displeased by this. So I mean, they were trying to say boo, but it kind of came out as a bit of a yay. But that's the brilliance of it, because it's not a coup. Robert Mugabe has not been deposed. I mean, they just put him in his toilet and said, "You're not allowed to come out until you resign." And then he said, "It's all right. I've got a backlog in my colon, so I can be here for a while." And then now, as we've seen this morning, the party itself, well, actually, we can, you know, they've found, you know, there's a hidden in the parliament in Harare is a cupboard.
Okay.
A locked cupboard.
Yeah.
And in it lies the Book of Zimbabwean Democracy. That's what it's called.
They actually have one?
The BZD. Well, that's the thing. It's only the ancient lore keepers of the parliament in Harare that know of the Book of Zimbabwean Democracy. But they have the key, so they've opened it, shooed away the spiders and swept away the dust, and they're all reading it now. And they're discovering all sorts of things, like, you know, how a legal society works, and one of these things is that they can actually get rid of him through you know, the party deposing him, etc. So that's what they're doing. It's not a coup. It's perfectly legal, formal transition of power with very high security provisions. So that's one thing to emulate. The other, I mean, the thing about Mr. Trump that I get across from him is that he enjoys doing powerful things and looking like a powerful person, and as I've said way earlier in the year, he's a bit like, you know, you're a new Mussolini. America doesn't, the United States has never really had a good tango with fascism. And every country has to go through that experience. It would be unfair to deny any country a good old-fashioned, whether it's ethnic cleansing or a civil war. I mean, we all need to get it out of our system. It's a bit like a stag do. So this is America. President Trump is America's fascist stag do. He enjoys being in power. He likes doing powerful things, but it doesn't really, the actual doing them is not important. He just needs to feel like he's doing them. Now, what do we have on the other side of the country? Not in Washington. We scoot across to California. There's this town called Hollywood, which is where they make inspirational stories and films and you know, culture. It's where they produce culture. Now, Hollywood has had a few issues lately, which through a random set of coincidences ended up with about 80% of all the males, producers, actors, directors in Hollywood kind of being unemployable. So there's this huge surplus of creative talent, which kind of will hopefully go to prison for a very long time. But community service merges with the problem in Washington. Mm-hmm. The Oval Office turns into the world's largest private IMAX cinema, and the whole thing just turns into a virtual reality experience. They lock him in there, have Harvey Weinstein produce Louis C.K. who can write the script, Kevin Spacey can direct, and they will just create a world for Donald Trump where he just does things virtually, but it's its own sort of internal private networks. All he'll ever see is just stuff that's created for him. The Trumpen show, if you will. It'll be his own Truman Show, his own world where he could just go and go yay, and we can have like a live feed, and it can be screened like every Saturday, and then the rest of the people in Washington actually make America work again. And get on with stuff, but we have this sort of little cute septuagenarian throwing hissy fits, and we all tune in with the family at 8 and laugh and debate and yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, it would be nice. He's been very quiet on one specific subject. Even his daughter Ivanka has come out and said that Alabama Senator or Governor Roy Moore, there's a special place in hell for people like Roy Moore because he molested 14-year-old girls when he came back from the war, and it was multiple times that he's been accused. 7 accusers now.
Jesus.
7 accusers now. And he's running for office, and he refuses to step down from the ticket. Now Ivanka came forward and said that, there's a special place in hell for him. Which I thought, okay, this is great. Well, what's Dad going to say? And then I thought, holy shit, wait. Dad's the one that says grab him by the pussy and that you just move in on him. So he can't say anything. And he has been completely quiet about this entire Roy Moore thing. So the Democrats in the U.S., it's tough because it's Alabama. And Cletus, I get it. Book Smarts just left you guys long time ago. It just did. If you vote in a pedophilia, there's no hope for you. There's just not. Nothing more can be said about it.
No. I am a bit speechless.
Yeah. And in the course of freedom of speech being attacked in the U.S., a woman in Texas was arrested for driving around with a bumper sticker that said, fuck Trump and fuck you if you voted for him. The sheriff of said county made it a point to bring up the statues of civil disobedience that were going on with having that on there. To which I happened to see it, and during Obama's reign, I spent quite a bit of time in Texas. My ex, Marjorie, was Filipino. We were considered to be a mixed-race couple. There was places in Texas that we couldn't go because there were bad looks that were said about us and things like that. Like, it was very harsh because she was a darker-skinned Filipino, so they might have thought she was black. I have no idea. But I know beyond a doubt, I saw pictures that said, or bumper stickers that said, hang Obama, and fuck you for voting for him and stuff like this. And so I questioned said sheriff on Facebook, because he made this Facebook post that talked about civil disobedience, and I questioned him that, okay, did you have the same actions, going on with Donald Trump? And if you want to even get into that, do you pull over every single truck that you see Calvin pissing on a Chevy symbol? Because technically that, by the letter of the law in which he quoted, that was obscene. He never responded back to me. He responded back to other people that were pro him, but anybody that was dissenting of him, he muted said comments or deleted them. So there's a constant ebb and flow of, there's 62 million people that voted for Trump. There was 120 odd million people that did not. And it's getting to the point now where those 60 million people believe that their voice is the only voice that matters, and the 120 odd million people are saying, no. So it's causing more of a split to where there's about 30 million people that are far left, 30 million people that are far right, and the rest are stuck in the middle.
There's no far left in the United States.
No, there is. It's social justice warriors. That's far enough left.
That's not far left.
As far as everybody gets along and everybody should be this,
No, I'm not going to perpetuate this myth. I mean, Bernie Sanders would be a far-right politician pretty much anywhere in Europe.
Oh, God, yeah.
So
He'd be a conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not left. He's not even socialist. He's not even semi-socialist.
No.
Yeah. He'd be a conservative centrist.
I mean, he could lead the far-right party in Sweden. That would be nice because, I mean, they're a bit, they could drop the racism, really. Anyway.
Yeah, so America's having all kinds of just every day something new. And I think it relates back to as well as having Donald Trump be in charge. Because now the world just looks at America as it used to be a stronghold. It used to be an economic stronghold, a military powerhouse, and a cultural icon.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's looked at as, and this is from living in London and talking to people of all ethnicities from multiple places in the country, and they just look at America now as a reality show that's not really that good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, I'd rather just watch Punisher on Netflix because America, it's just not really that interesting anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the US in this respect is a bit like The Simpsons. I mean, seasons say 4 to 10 were great. Lately, though,
it's just they're putting it on to try to set Guinness Book of World Records for most episodes or something.
I mean, they try to inject a bit of life into it with the film, and much like the United States, you know, try to do it by electing Donald Trump or Barack Obama, depending on how you look at it, but it hasn't quite worked out.
Yeah.
Basically what I'm saying is, allegedly Donald Trump is America's Spider Pig. I think that could be the episode's title.
I know. America's Spider Pig, Donald Trump. I like that. All right, yeah.
Allegedly.
In parentheses or in
we do not know the percentage, if any, of porcine genes in Donald Trump's DNA.
Exactly, and just like his tax returns, we'd never get a hold of his DNA to find out.
Have we seen Donald Trump's birth certificate? I don't know if we have.
No, we haven't seen his birth certificate. Although his parents were German immigrants, so.
Nothing against Germans, good people.
Yeah.
Provided they stay in the box. Anyway.
Yes, he'll stay in the box. Getting on to beer news. Are you familiar with Toast Brew?
No, I'm familiar with toast, and I'm familiar with brews, but I'm not familiar with Toast Brew.
Alright, so there is a brewery, and they're actually making headways. They got some good publicity. I saw it on CNN, I saw it on Verge, I saw it on Mashable. I think even HuffPost had something about it. They're out of the UK. They also do brewing in the States, and what they do is they have a contract with sandwich makers. So like you go to your Tesco's and you get your sandwich. Mm-hmm. You know how it's never an end of a loaf.
Yes.
Okay. Well, those ends of the loaves end up just going to trash or wherever it may be.
Okay.
So what Toast Brew does is they use that bread and they brew their beer with it.
Oh. Okay, so they use it as malt or something.
Yeah, so that's their actual malt. So they're using that, and then all profits go back to charity. They have a few different charities that they work with, and it's a non-profit that they're kind of going off of. That's kind of nice. I actually thought it was appealing to me, and I'd hoping you had tried it, and I was like, shit, if you haven't tried it, I got to try to find a bottle shop that actually carries it here.
No, I'm currently in exile in Bristol, so I can't really.
Yeah. Oh, there's no bottle shops in Bristol.
Not where I am at Bristol. I mean, I'm in a bit called, and I hope no one from Bristol is listening, but I'm fairly confident no one is from anywhere. I'm in a bit called Bradley Stoke, which is north Bristol. which the locals affectionately call Stably Broke.
Stably Broke?
Stably Broke.
Ah.
So, yeah,
Did you get that when you went to go to the one restaurant they have in that town? They told you, welcome to Stably Broke?
No. Although, I mean, there's more than one. It's there's a lot of motorways in the area and identikit houses and business parks. It's that sort of place. And there's an Aldi there, and there's a Tesco there. Those are supermarkets for those of you, in Spider Pig Land. And there are 3 takeaways. It's 4 takeaways. It's like a cliche. It's the bare minimum of anything. There's a pub that I think has a selection of Stella, and then the other tap of Stella. And the takeaways are so inventively titled as there's the British takeaway, which is the fish and chips shop. There's Pizza Hut. There's Peking Chinese.
Oh, well, do you have to have a Chinese place?
Well, this is the thing. So, there's an Indian, House of Spice. I had the Indian. It was okay. And I went to the Chinese. Because I am there, I am away. I expense food. I'm not going to cook for myself. I refuse to do that. I cook for myself when I pay for it and when I'm here. But I don't need to do that there, so I don't. That was my mentality. But if you have these 4 takeaways, none of which really sounded fascinating, I was a bit anxious. But I went to the Chinese, and it is like your any Chinese takeaway. Very simple. It's the same menu you get anywhere else. Your spring rolls, your whatever. And it looks and it is priced like the sort of place that would give you food poisoning. And I got my spring rolls, and I got my hot and sour soup, and I got my Singapore vermicelli noodles, and paid about £9, which was frustrating because I have expense dinners, and the most I ordered as much as I could possibly eat, and it was still £9. I was really fucked off. And then I thought, right, so I paid. I can't even get a proper dinner. I'm going to get food poisoning from this, and then I open it, and it was lovely. It was utterly brilliant. They were like fresh noodles with fresh ingredients and fresh vegetables. It was like going to like a proper place in Chinatown in Soho, and paying like 20 quid for a dish of noodles. It was like that sort of quality. Okay. In a plastic little container. Yes. I was utterly bemused. And frankly, this is not a good story. And it has no place on this podcast, and probably no one was really interested. But I just really wanted to share this experience because I was surprised. And the thing about being in North Bristol is that I'm very alone there. I have no one to talk to. So now I've shared the story, I feel like I have friends again. So yeah, thank you for being there for me, Cletus and.
Interesting run of a tangent there that you went off on.
I don't even know how we ended up on it. It started off as tangent from something, but I can't even trace it back to whatever it was. Well,
because we were talking about Toast Brew, and I asked if they had a bottle shop.
Oh yeah, that's how it goes. So the answer is no, they don't have a bottle shop. Yeah, is what I was trying to say with this story.
Okay. Well, I will search out then, and I will try to find some of said Toast Brews so that we can partake and do an old school perfect pint drink episode like we used to do.
I could last week, but with wine.
Well, yeah, but the wine was really good last week.
Yeah, it was.
I know. The bad thing is it's no longer on sale at my local Tesco. It used to be £5. Now it went back up to its regular price, which is £10. And I always feel a bit chuffed paying £10 when.
There was wine. I went to this party I was telling you before, and the only reason I went was because there was boxed wine. Because we did it a couple of weeks back where we had basically met up at the pub at 12. Yeah. For lunch. I got home at 3, and ended up crashing. The first sort of on the way home. We left at midnight because we thought 12 hours is enough, and we started off in the pub, and then we went to Co-op, and we wanted to get other things that so we got wine, but we thought there's 6 of us, although only 2 of us were drinking wine. So we got a box of it. 4 bottles, $5.99. $4.99. 4 bottles of wine in a box. Obviously not the bottles, just contents. In a box for $4.99. My expectations were not high.
Mm-hmm.
It was delicious.
But were you already inebriated?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So that helped. But
Yes.
it wasn't like disgusting wine. It was actually quite nice. And afterwards we left at midnight thinking, look, after about 6 pints and a box of wine and some cocktails, I think the dignified thing is to
Go home.
leave.
Yeah.
On the way we stumbled into an Eritrean jazz place with a friend of mine. And we were listening to the jazz, and a different friend. We were listening to the jazz, and she looked at me and said, I don't understand any of this. And I looked at her, finished my beer, and said, I don't understand any of this. And that was the only things we said and then we left. And then we walked past a church at about 2 a.m. And
Church near Oval.
yeah. Yeah, did I tell you this story?
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell it on the podcast?
Mm-hmm. And the wedding.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, but that wasn't. That was just a digression story.
Yes.
Box
of wine.
Fuck it. Just cut this thing. Just cut the whole fucking thing.
No,
in fact, cut it from the start. No episode. Welcome to the perfect.
Wow, you just went really. You time warped back 2 years?
Brain damage.
Yeah, too much drinking.
Too many boxes of wine. Anyway, but my point was there was an unfinished box of wine yesterday, which really peeves me off because I went there for the boxed wine and had everything else apart from the boxed wine.
Ah, that's disappointing for sure.
Fuck you.
Well, I mean, think about it. Yesterday I told you, ended up polishing off did polish off an entire bottle of Jack and a 2-liter bottle of Coke because I was just like, oh, it's cold. Punisher is on Netflix. I can binge watch, and the dog's already been walked and she's happy. I'm doing laundry, and yeah, I'll just sit here and do that.
Mm.
And then by about 9:30, I went, oh. But you mentioned the 12 hours from 12 to 12. It reminded me of the farewell prior to my moving back to San Diego, where you and I met up at the Harp at about noon. Mm. And then I didn't get home until 2. Mm. We're going to have to plan out another one of those adventures.
Well, it definitely sounds like something I wouldn't remember.
Yeah.
But I do vague. I remember the event taking place.
Yes.
Don't necessarily remember the actual event.
I don't.
But we should do like a pub crawl. I mean, this is completely, again, irrelevant to the pod. Basically, for the past 15 minutes, I mean...
we've just been catching up, because you've been in Bristol.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've only been able to chat a bit. And
It's a bit like, I mean, yeah, it's a bit like an intermission in a film. We're just sort of chatting before getting back to the podcast. So, yeah, ignore us. Go make yourself a cup of tea, make some toast, shave your dog, because why not? It's summer.
Well,
in Australia.
One thing that I did want to bring up, and I want to apologize to the rest of the world for...
Apology accepted. We all make mistakes. Anyway.
Black Friday.
Is that like another civil rights thing?
No, Black Friday is a sales thing that takes place next Friday.
Oh, is that the one where all the crazy people trample over each other to get like a 20% discount for crisps?
Exactly, and unfortunately, it has made its way over here.
It's like fucking Halloween. You just keep pumping this shit out and spreading it around the world.
And this one, I truly do want to apologize for. So if you do need to go to Asda next weekend or next Friday, stay away from there. If you have a Super Tesco anywhere near you, I'd stay away from there. I just want to take this time to apologize in advance because for the rest of us, we look at the horrific actions that take place at Walmarts and think you people are insane. But in America, it's people will be sleeping out in front of the Best Buys, and
I just don't get it. It's completely irrational, right? I mean, the discounts aren't that major. Some of them might be, but If I really want something, I just buy it. And it's much nicer and comfortable to just walk in somewhere and not trample on people and not having yourself trampled over. And then to crowd with people and wait for it, and it's just uncivilized, but more importantly, it's irrational. Because all you can do, right, fine, I get it, not everyone, we often want more things than we can afford, whether that's because we genuinely want or need them, or we're conditioned to want or feel that we need them. That's another debate. But I can see the point that someone wants, you're getting your average paid job, and you want to do your holiday, and you have kids, you need to get Christmas. Money is tight, so you want to bargain. But if money really is that tight, I mean, why don't you just go to the store when there's not a Black Friday sale and take the item and walk out and not pay and take it home and use it, and when you do get caught and arrested and sent to prison, just call a friend in the White House. They'll come and bail you out. Because that's how we're doing things, right? I mean, that's the precedent that has been set, right? Theft is fine. Donald Trump will come and rescue. He's genuinely turned into a villain. He's in his lair, protected by security, going around the world and just fucking shit up and, busting people out of prison. I mean, what's next? He flies off and with a crowbar and busts El Chapo out in his big ginger cape. He's where are the Batmen of this world?
We need a hero.
We need a hero.
We need a hero. I will say, only on 2 occasions have I ever partaked in the Black Friday. 4 years ago, Camilla needed a new laptop. My mom said she was going to go to it. We were down in Gloucestershire at her brother's, and she sent me a message. I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? And she went to Best Buy, which is like Curry's, and got a Dell laptop with 8 gigabytes of RAM, 500 gigabytes of memory, 500 gigabyte hard drive for $150.
Not bad.
So it was about 100 quid, because at the time the pound was pretty strong. Prior to me moving here, I had went, and my mom needed a new television, and so I had went and bought her TV, because I had seen Black Friday like adverts. And I went to a Walmart. I bought her TV. It was a 42-inch high def, whatever else. It was like $125. And then I just went and bought myself one as well, because I thought, well, can never have too many TVs, so I'm just going to go buy this as well. So yeah, I bought 2 of them. But in this age now, to where Amazon rules the world, and I mean, I can see Amazon deliveries from like boxes sitting right in front of me on your floor.
Oh, listener, if you could only see the room.
I don't need to go and wait in line.
That's the thing. You know what 21st century Black Friday is?
Cyber Monday.
No, Groupon.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much all it is. Yeah.
Groupon is a year-round Black Friday, and you don't have to queue. You just click. There's no. I mean, they're basically people who do Black Friday are Amish fetishists, because they do an out. I mean, what? You drive your horse cart and to buy your discounted fax machine at your Best Buy after flicking through your Sears catalogue. And once you do the Best Buy, you pop over to Kmart.
Oh gosh, Kmart's aren't even around.
I know they're not.
Yeah, and Target's closing down stores, and Amazon it's Bezos is taking over the world, which is fine.
Wow, that's some quality airtime there. Wow, Nick, you're such a good host. You just keep the conversation flowing.
Well, I had something in the back of my mind, and
well, bring it forward.
No, because we got sidetracked with the going down the rabbit hole of Donald Trump being a villain.
Allegedly.
Fuck, I gotta remember to keep saying allegedly whenever I say anything like
We
that.
just have an allegedly machine that, like a metronome, you go...
Just be able to...
tick. No, not even. It's just periodically set. Every 5 minutes it just says, allegedly. And that'll be... That's our disclaimer across. Or just superimpose an allegedly track over the actual recording track.
So underneath you just have subliminal messaging that every 5 minutes you'll just hear, allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's like when you do film shots, right? Mm-hmm. You make a film and you have like a crowd shot where you need background crowd noise.
Yeah.
So traditionally, what all the extras who are not the principal characters,
yes.
all the extras in the background, they used to say rhubarb, 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 which mimics apparently the sound of conversation. So we just have audience track in the background, just constantly sort of an audience hum, like we used to do with the Perfect Pint podcast, the sort of fake pub thing. We never recorded from a pub. Shock horror. And we just have, lots of people going allegedly all throughout the thing, and we're covered. I think that's how law works.
But Your Honor, I think that's how law works. I learned it all from Twitter.
There's a lot to learn from Twitter. Now you can tweet 98% of the Bible verses with the new 280 character limit, and not to be outshone, 96% of the Quran.
Well, with the 280 character limit, it's been interesting to see how people have responded to it, because I think so many people that do use Twitter on a daily basis are still locked into that 140 character limit, which I think is good. Yeah. Because why they originally Twitter had the 140 character limit, right?
Yeah, there was a text message limit, wasn't it?
Exactly. So, and it also, the human brain, it takes roughly 15 seconds to read 140 characters. And
the human brain has been drinking too much.
And digest it. Meaning fully functioning, understand it. Because you can read through something very quickly, but you won't actually digest it. Right. You go back and reread it. So in order to digest it, it takes the U.S. human brain 15 seconds. The rest of the world about 6. But hey, I went to public school in the U.S. I can say that. But with it, you've seen that the people that have taken advantage of the extra character limits are the ones that weren't intelligent enough to be able to fit it into 140 to begin with, and need to emphasize their stance on things, and the only way they can do it is by more words. I run a marketing agency, and I always tell my account agents that, you're not selling anything. People are buying marketing services. So let them talk, ask simple, easy questions, let them talk, let them share. Twitter is now turned into the people that are trying to sell you on an idea. They think they need to use all 100 or all 280 characters in order to sell you on something. So you don't actually want to buy anything. Whereas you get the journalists that are putting out the sound bites that make sense, that are tailored to news. Yeah. That's all I need. I'm looking at Twitter for news. It's the number one news source in the entire world. The entire world does tune to Twitter when any news thing breaks, because it's the fastest, easiest way to get information. Yeah. And it's just and I will, allegedly, it's the right side in America that is trying to propagate that I need more words to prove my point, because my point can't be proved simply.
Or clever marketing calling themselves the right, because when you said the right side of America, I didn't know whether you mean right politically or the people who are correct. Yeah. But I think this is easily resolved with how Twitter has had their issues with the verified status. I think there should be a new function, the tit function, where you have the 140 and 200, you have the new 280 character limit. And when you, write 100, 280, but if you go over 140, there's a tiny little sort of call-out that appears underneath where you're writing your message. And it just says in little red letters, you may be a bit of a tit. and then you delete it, and when you go back to 140, it disappears. And what it does is it kind of, you go over 140 and it says you may be a bit of a tit, and what it forced people to do is, am I a bit of a tit here? I mean, and it goes through the same process, do I need to do this? And then they kind of rephrase and realize, no, I'm not a tit, thank God, and they feel good about themselves. The people who actually need those 280 characters, you know, because sometimes, like, you know, you're debating whether Sartre's take on existentialism is better than Camus' version of absurdism, sort of thing. And you might need more than 140 characters, and then you get there, you may be a bit of a tit, but you can ignore that because you can objectively say, look, I'm making a valid point here, I'm not a tit, but thank you for the warning, heads up. And, you know, you post your tweet, good. And then there's the people who will just think that, but not actually, they are tits. They just don't, I mean, the problem with the tit is the tit doesn't realise it is a tit. So the tit will just ignore it, but then they'll do this regularly, periodically. It's chronic inability to express oneself succinctly. So then you get a little tag by your Twitter handle that says verified tit. And then when you're scanning through Twitter, then you have your filter options, and you have your, oh, Christ, I was about to read that, but that person has the tit mark. Or you can just exclude the tit thing from the, and that's sort of the whole problem, because you have your 280 character limit, page limit. Jesus Christ, that's Twitter in 2030. Can you imagine?
The microblogging site that turned into a blogging site that just turned into novels.
The problem is, even if Twitter had a 280 page limit, I still wouldn't use it because I feel it would be too constrictive.
Alright, I think we've got most of the current events gone through, and we've solved the world's problems, as we do each and every week on the JSBS podcast. Feel free to go over to jsbspod.com. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/JSBSpod. We're on Twitter at JSBSpod. Instagram.
Verified tits on Twitter.
JSBSpod. And you can go to Patreon. Go to patreon.com/JSBSpod to give us some money. All right, as we do each and every time we're in the JSBS Studio North, we are going to get into a interesting take on a psychological, we won't call them disorders, but we will call them abnormality, that the beer doctor has come across, that he finds to be not only engaging but entertaining and educational.
Thank you for assuming I have no stories of my own to talk about.
Oh, well, the whole point behind it was, do you have stories?
Thank you for asking, I did.
Oh, then let's just do those. Because no, I want to get into those because we didn't have anything of fluff, so I can cut out that little bit right there.
No, it's fine. I can do my person, and then I can do my stories.
Okay.
That way we don't have two regular segments. This is just admin chat. Ignore this. But the short response to your very eloquent and highbrow introduction is no. No, I do have a person though. The thing is, I was trying to. I mean, I have a few people in mind. You know, going forward. Fuck, I use going forward. I hate that term. Few people in mind planned for the future, and I was going to do one of them. Mm-hmm. And then I came across this guy, and I thought, well, it's not really a mental disorder.
Okay.
But I can make it one. And who am I to let facts get in the way of a good story?
Okay, then.
For this is a good story. It's a short story.
Yes.
Which is good, because we kind of talked too much about, some would even say bullshitted too much about other stuff. But, I mean, I guess, okay, caveat. I guess if this was a mental disorder, this would be the absolute exquisite, highest form, the Thetan level 9, if Scientology was a mental disorder, which it is. This is the Thetan level 9 of perfection.
Okay.
This is beyond... If Tom Cruise was a pathological liar, which the disorder is, not necessarily Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise isn't a disorder.
Allegedly.
Doop, doop, doo, doo. I need to get a bigger mailbox.
Good thing we don't have a fax machine.
No, so this is the highest form of pathological lying. We are going to talk about briefly His Imperial and Royal Highness Stefan Černetic, hereditary Prince of Montenegro, Serbia and Albania, and hereditary titular emperors, tit again, of Constantinople, Romania and Greece.
Okay, Constantinople hasn't been a place for how many thousands of years?
Oh, well, this is look, I mean, Europe, most of Europe has realized there's a few exceptions, such as Great Britain, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, Monaco, Spain, and a few others that are a little bit backward and still believe that, you know, having hereditary monarchy is in any way productive use of state funds and is does not at all symbolize everything that's wrong with insipid, corrupt inheritance of unearned, stagnant wealth. Not that I'm against monarchy or anything. But Europe used to have a lot more monarchies than it has now. The thing about, unless you're Russia, when you get rid of your monarchy, you don't necessarily murder all the monarchs or all the royal family.
True.
Some of those people just don't. It's not like Meeseeks from Rick and Morty, where they fulfill their duty and all of a sudden they just vaporize. The people continue living.
Yes.
They have no power. They're a bit like Robert Mugabe, really. Topical. Look at me with the topical references. Anyway, so these people haven't. So there's loads of sort of petty little monarchs around Europe who are sort of either pretenders or they're deposed royal families, and they procreate like any other person. So there's actually a lot of people with royal titles, but with no, apart from the royal titles, no actual substance to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not uncommon. So you would have people with absolutely ridiculous titles in this thing, and this. But this chap kind of takes it to the next level, because the thing about Stefan Černetic is that he's not even Montenegrin or Macedonian. He's an Italian guy from Trieste, but he has made a career out of being a royal. He has a website, he has a Facebook page, and all he does is travel around Europe, go to events. He has been at, he has met Prince Albert of Monaco. They have had dinner together. He has met famous tennis players. He has knighted Pamela Anderson. He has made her, I think, the Countess of. There's a picture of this here, which we can use in the podcast. He has knighted Pamela Anderson and made her, I believe, a Countess of Montenegro, and she cried when she was honoured in this way. He is a royal in all but actual being a royal, because this is all made up.
But you can. Does he make money? Like, does he have?
It's all. In short, no and yes. So he doesn't. This is his job.
Okay.
Most places he goes, he's invited by other royals, or he just gets it for free because he's a royal. It's good, It's it's like you go to a clothes shop and you brandish all your royal stuff. They give you stuff for free because then they can put it on the picture on the Facebook page. And there's lots of articles written about this guy. from all across Europe, villages honoured by this guy coming over to see them. And as I said, it's not like this is someone who buys a lordship online and then goes her. No, this guy is a master
so I can make up a title.
It's made up.
So I could do this.
His website is not a brilliant example of design, but it is a brilliant example of fraud because he has the orders, he has the family tree, which people have researched and realized it's all bogus.
Okay.
Half of the places he claims exist don't even exist. There's this. It's a whole intricate web. Even has his own wine. It's an all intricate web of deceit, but it's so good that even the royals and celebrities bought it. People genuinely believed that this guy was a prince, was a royal, and treated him as such. And then he accepted donations, and he said he was doing it for charitable causes, etc. Because that's what these deposed royals do. They have lots of family wealth. They don't actually need to work that much, so they dedicate themselves to philanthropy, somehow believing that justifies their unjustifiable wealth.
I can't get over the fact that with just a better designed website, I could do this.
But it takes a special sort of balls to be able to do this. A pathological liar balls.
And they got to be huge and brass.
And lack of
morality?
I would say dignity and morality. So he also has a sidekick. Let me try to. Whose title is absolutely phenomenal. So he has, and this is what we could do. It's like a buddy comedy.
Okay.
So he has his Montenegro, Macedonia prince, blah blah blah, and then he has a friend who goes around and acts as his royal ambassador, and his title is Royal Highness SAS Principe Don Cosimo Camarano of Zampesci Forlinpopoli.
That's just a bunch of made up words.
But that's the funny thing. It is. This guy. It's all made up. It's fantastic. It's not like he researched past duchies and extinct family lines that he could somehow. He's just blatantly gone. I'm Fred. I rule Truskinia. I mean, this is what you'd expect in an Eddie Murphy film or something. But he's just gone off and done it, and everyone lapped it up. And it's not like he did it in the 80s. It's not like I might do another. There's a famous story of a footballer who faked his entire career because he was friends with Brazilian footballers. So what the guy did is a Brazilian footballer joined a European football club, soccer, for people who don't know what football is. And the Brazilian players would go, oh, that guy is really, really good. He's our mate. And he's like the best striker you will see, best since Pele. And the club would sign him, and the guy would go in, and it'd be the first training day. All the press were there, and the fans would gather in the stadium. It's like, this is the biggest Brazilian talent since Pele. And the guy would kick a ball and immediately get an injury, fake an injury. And he wouldn't play until the end of his contract, where the same thing would happen. He would go someplace else, transfer, first day of training, he gets injured. And he had over 10-year football career doing just that. He has never actually played a game, but he was earning, and he was considered a brilliant Brazilian footballer. Anyway, but that was 70s, 80s.
Pre-internet.
This guy does it now. He has a Facebook page. He was only really discovered earlier this year. After he stayed in a hotel in Switzerland, he stayed at a hotel in Switzerland, and when they asked unexpectedly for him to pay, he told them, "Oh, just invoice it to the embassy of Macedonia, embassy of Montenegro." So they did, and the embassy of Montenegro actually replied to the hotel, saying, "Please stop sending us these bills. Montenegro doesn't have a prince, and if we did have one, we would certainly not share it with Macedonia." which is like snap. And then the hotel contacted the police, and that's how this guy was caught, arrested, and is now facing 5 years in prison.
Oh shit! So we'd go to prison if we didn't do it really, really well. Okay. I thought he was still, free running around, being prince of places that don't even exist.
These are so. I mean, so these are some of his orders: the Imperial Equestrian Order of Saint Hubert, the Imperial Orthodox Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, the Dynastic Equestrian Order of Merit, Golden Doppelladler, the Imperial House Senetic, the Angelico Sacro Imperiale Equestrian Order of Saint George Orthodox Constantinian, and the Senetic Imperial Order. They're just made up.
Yeah, he just made up words.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was my... I know it's not quite mental disorder, but I saw this guy and I thought I need to talk about him. What mental disorder can I crowbar in? And so I went with pathological liars.
Nice. Yeah, you'll have to send me over a link, and I'll link it in the show bio notes. So if you go on any podcast app that you're listening to this on, or if you go to jsbspod.com, you will find a link to learn more about this absolutely amazing individual and his incredible lifestyle. I didn't think that you could get away with that much bullshit now.
It is. Honestly, I think you should get clemency because, frankly, balls that size, borderline cancerous. Just give him clemency for health reasons. I mean, living with such balls must be difficult.
Well, the message you just sent me had a disclaimer that said, and I quote, "Warning, his anthem auto-plays when you visit the site," and I cannot wait for that. I might actually put that at the end of this podcast. So if you want to hear his anthem, I will download it and I will play it at the very end of this podcast, because that's just, I mean, even Spider Pig doesn't have this big of balls. And he's sold some serious whoopers of a lie, but...
He must have a coat of arms, though.
Oh, I'm sure he's created one.
I wonder if he has an anthem. I mean, it's something he should really do.
He does. Spider Pig, Spider Pig, does what Spider Pig does. Spider Pig, Spider Pig. All right, so what stories do you have before we lead into travel advisory for winter holidays?
It's actually just two quick stories. Well, one is quick, one isn't. I came across an interesting study.
Oh, great. No, I meant that not in a negative way. I meant it in a positive way. Oh, great. Because every time you come up with one interesting study, i.e. when we did the octopi, I actually learned a lot.
Okay, so, Nick, you have taken up cycling.
Yes.
So, why did you take up cycling?
Health and finance.
Let's focus on the health. Let's focus on the health. Weird Groundhog Day. Let's focus on the health. 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 Obviously, we will cut this. Let's focus on the health. No, didn't come out right. Now I'm obsessing about it. Let us focus on the health. Let's focus on the health. I broke myself.
I know you did.
I think there's a scratch on my brain. And
it was
just
so
spinning.
fun because it's like
looping.
a record. And it's like, let's focus on the health. Focus on the health. Focus on the health.
I like our generational divide where you said it's like a record, whilst I was saying it's like a scratched CD.
Oh yeah, I thought it was a record because that's how it always goes. Whenever you had the record, it would go. You'd scratch it and go, focus on the health. Focus on the health. Focus on the health.
And that concludes today's episode of Old Men Discuss Technology You've Never Even Heard of.
Records are making a comeback.
True.
The hipsters are bringing that shit back.
True. Yeah. Anyway, so you took up cycling for health reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It is fairly undeniable that regular exercise, or it is thought that regular exercise has a positive effect on one's health.
Mm-hmm.
bad health is one of the leading... lack of exercise, lack of activity is one of the leading causes of death around the world.
Mm-hmm.
That much we agree. Do you think you're doing enough exercise?
Well, between cycling, coaching, and then training in the gym, yes. I mean, I tend to... When I went to see my GP, the nurse who was doing the little pre-examination thing, she goes, "Oh, this can't be your right birthday." And I'm like, "Why can't this be your right birthday?" She goes, "Oh, you're not 40. I said, "Yeah, I'm 40 years old." She goes, "No, you're in too good of shape to be 40 years old. You missed a number." I went, "No, I know how old I am. I'm fairly certain I know almost down to the exact day how old I am." And she was like, "Oh, okay, but you're in very good shape." So okay, thank you.
You know what the depressing thing is? If I was in that clinic with you, she'd probably turn to me and, "Let's ask your dad."
This is true. Even with the gray on my beard, I could still pull it off.
But okay,
so yes, I do think I exercise enough.
that's good because see, exercising and its benefit on health, as it turns out, comes with a caveat.
Okay.
Does exercise benefit health? Yes.
That was my stomach.
Cracker?
No.
Exercise does benefit health, but only as long as you believe it.
Okay, so if I were to think that all the cycling and everything I was doing was actually not doing me good...
No, it's not necessarily not doing you good. If you do all the cycling and all the coaching and all the gymming, etc., and all the drinking, that's exercise as well.
Exactly.
Don't ruin my fantasy.
Pint curls.
Yeah, exactly. You do all that, and if you didn't actually believe that that's enough, if you think I should be doing more, it will have no benefit.
Wow.
So basically, if you're one of those sort of self-deprecating people, I guess depressed people,
Yeah.
and you go, "Oh, this is not enough," you might as well not even try. So if you have like a morning gym routine, but you sort of go to the gym and you go to work and you sit there and go, "I just really should have gotten up earlier and gone to the gym earlier to get most of it," really you needn't have bothered at all. Because as it turns out, people who don't believe that the exercise they are doing is enough die early.
Wow, so that your mind basically controls it to where even though you're doing good because you're exercising, you're losing weight, or you're exercising your heart to make sure you get good circulation and everything else, but if you have that depressive thought of I'm not doing and I'm not doing enough, you're actually killing yourself.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, the depression. It is a symptom of depression, not believing that you're doing enough, and that is where the actual effect comes in. Because depressed people die early. But I mean, it kind of lends credence to what I've always been saying when people say, "Oh, Radovan, you don't move." I don't run. I refuse to. I mean, physical activity was created by God to achieve a purpose. Like even to this day, whenever I see a jogger run past me, my first instinct is to help them, because surely some tragedy must have happened that they just didn't hop in their car or couldn't walk to the place. I mean, their house must be on fire if they're running away. But I mean,
well, you've ran one time.
Yeah, I did run, and I'll never do it again
because you fell and you were injured.
I couldn't walk for 3 weeks afterwards. People always say, "Radovan, you don't do exercise," and I don't. But I always tell them I do, because exercise is 90% mental. And up until now, I've always said that as a joke. From now on, I'll say it as scientific fact, because I do no exercise whatsoever. But the beautiful thing is I do plenty of exercise. So I'll live as long as you with your cycling and your gymming and your coaching.
No, you'll have a heart attack before that, but yeah.
45, I estimate.
Yeah, that's mine too. The current running bet has you dead before you're 50.
Frankly, I don't like to celebrate birthdays because I honestly think the entire thing is just utterly I mean, well done for feeding yourself for yet another year. What a unique, singular achievement. Let's all celebrate that.
You stayed alive for one more year.
Yeah, exactly. But in my case, really, by the point I reach 40, after I turn 40, every birthday party of mine is going to be a fucking massive party because that is stuff to celebrate. Me surviving even a second beyond 40 will be an achievement unseen since the days of Keith Richards.
Well, with that in mind, then, I expect a huge celebration then in January for my 41st birthday.
No, me, not you.
Yeah, well, I'm taking a page out of your book. I'm lucky to have lived this long through the life that I've lived.
Shut up, Gramps.
You fucking dickhead. All right, what was your other story that you got for me?
Do we have time for it, or do we...
Yeah, because wherever we're going for travel, we should be fine.
Okay, all right. No, this is another study.
Oh.
I came across, and this blew my mind. I had some back then, and what was there is now no longer there. It was blown away, and basically my life since I've read this study has gone off the rails completely because I have no brain.
Okay.
But it's a difficult concept to describe, but simply put, time, right? The stuff that happens that we can't see, but you just wake up one morning and you look into the mirror and you sigh and you go, shit, what has happened to, is that even me? I look like my fucking dad. That's that effect you feel, that's time. And it's marching on. I mean, yeah. Well, that was a grim beginning to this. But how do we really know how time is progressing? I mean, how do we know? I mean, how do I know that you see time, perceive it as quickly as I do? Maybe to you your life is just. To me, it's and it kind of has been up to this, but even things like when you say you're drunk in a pub and you do things that are inadvisable, time tends to fly quickly, right? But if
the next day that time goes really, really slow.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's that sort of effect. And this study basically studied this, not in people, but across species. What it was trying to answer is, do different animals perceive time differently? And why? And the way you research that, because you can't, I mean, yes, an octopus you could sit down and ask how quick is time going. You can't do that with a fly. So what they did is used a concept of critical flicker fusion rate.
Okay.
You don't need to remember that. It's not going to be on the test. So what critical flicker fusion rate is if you take the old films, not digital, if you take the old films, the way they were actually the physical film thing, you see it as a series of images. And then you play it on a cinema screen, but to us as humans, that feels like a continuous film. You sit a fly there, and the fly will just get an epileptic fit because it's just a series of jittery images, jittery photographs sort of going past one after the other. So what the critical flicker fusion rate is the frequency at which point a flickering source of light becomes static permanently. So you have you're emitting a light from a source, and you see it flickering, and gradually it flickers faster and faster and faster. At some point, there you will reach a threshold where you won't see the flickering. Well, it just look like light,
a pure light, the entire
like
time.
a lamplight. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And this is used to measure how you perceive. And in terms of evolution, it's quite a tricky one, because obviously you want this threshold to be very, very high, logically, because it's better, right? But the problem is, the higher the threshold is, the more brain power you need to actually process these images. So what happens in different animals is, for instance, it's a compromise. You know, how much space and power and metabolism do you dedicate to this thing of just being able to perceive flickering? For a rapid animal, like an antelope or a hunter, like a cheetah, obviously this threshold needs to be high, because they're very quick animals and they need to perceive speed very quickly. Changes of speed, changes of direction of their prey. For an elephant, all an elephant ever sees is the opposite wall in Donald Trump Jr.'s hunting cabinet. So you don't need to perceive movement in such fine detail. So you don't need to. The brain doesn't need to dedicate resources, and the threshold is low. So what you see is it's not. But this is not just a static thing. It's not just flickering. That your whole brain, the way you perceive the world around you, is kind of related to this flicker function. So the higher your threshold, the slower you perceive, in more fine detail you perceive time. So a fly, I slap you. That was me slapping Nick. To us, it felt like a slap. To a fly, it would be. So this, our podcast to a fly is like a week long. To a tortoise or an elephant, which is why we're so popular with elephants, because it's like a 10-second thing. They go, oh, well, that was a nice country. And frankly, this entire study is utterly pointless, because there's nothing, no progressive knowledge we gain from this. It's just really fucking interesting. and I like when studies are pointlessly interesting, because there's nothing we can do with this knowledge.
Can't learn from it.
The world is not going to be a better place. But to me, I've never paused and thought that, the bird that just flew there, what I see, it's just flickering past my window. For it's how I would experience my commute. Mm-hmm. And you kind of start wondering, wow, that's deep, man. Anyway, so those were my stories.
Master Radvan got into the edibles. Apparently down in Bristol, they got an edible shop. Good times. All right, as we do each and every week, we look to see, you know what, Christmas holidays, I want to get away. I want to go somewhere. Or, if, you're the military inclined, you think, where can I invade and actually take over a country? So, Radovan, where in the world are we going this week?
We are going to an utterly fascinating place. And when I saw it this morning, when I was preparing this segment months ago, as I do prepare, I thought, I looked at it, like, oh, that's really interesting. It's a real shame that I'm really fucking hungover and I have about 30 minutes to do this. This could have been really good. But here we are. Boys in Georgia and any other militarily inclined people, you can stop listening now, as if you haven't stopped ages ago when we were ranting, when I was just went on a massive tangent about vermicelli noodles in North Bristol. Frankly, I think we've lost most people at that point. But those of you who are sort of going, but I have a really itchy invasion finger, Spider Pig, if you're listening. Who can I nuke next or invade or whatever? You can stop now. Pointless. Because what we're visiting is a country that has never, ever been invaded. Ever. No one. You know why?
There's not shit there?
Oh, there's stuff there.
Okay.
It's just like a really steep hill.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about Bhutan. Bhutan, for those of you who don't know, is not in any way related to butane, which is a gas. Bhutan is also not a tribute band to the Wu-Tang clan. It's not the Bhutan clan. Bhutan is also not just something I made up. I'm not Stefan Cernevich or whatever it was. Bhutan is a place. It's called the Land of Dragons.
Okay.
The kings of Bhutan are called the Dragon Kings. They've got a dragon on their flag, and it's on a mountain. So basically,
it's Game of Thrones.
What I'm trying to say is yes, and Skyrim isn't just a made up computer game. It's the shit that happens in Bhutan.
Okay.
This is why Skyrim sales are so low in Bhutan. A, they don't really do technology, and B, they're like, to you and me, it's like playing a pub drinking simulator.
Oh, okay.
Well, if I click, I drink beer. Hold on, why am I not just doing this? They put on Skyrim, and they sort of see, I need to kill that dragon. I'll just go outside and kill a dragon. Bhutan is on a big hill. It's called the Himalayas. It's a whole bunch of hills. In fact, Bhutan has the highest still unclimbed hill in the world, which is the Gankar Puensum. I might just making these names up for all these people. The whole thing about Bhutan is such ridiculous terminology, left, right, and center, that is not used anywhere else. I could just make this whole thing up. Maybe I will. You might want to fact check this later. Anyway, so the mountain is 7,500 meters. It's never been climbed. It's technically challenging. Again, we are talking about a place. This is a place lodged between India, which was at one point democratically, willingly run by this philanthropic organization called the British Empire. The British Empire, for those who are unfamiliar with it, used to run the world. They owned the world. These are not people who sort of, you sit at home on a Sunday afternoon, it's kind of the end of the weekend, and it's Monday, you start getting anxious about having to go to work and all that sort of thing, and you go, do I just stay in and watch TV, or do I go for a walk, or do I just go for a pint and try to make this pass as quickly as possible? It's that, do I put myself out of the misery, do I prolong this? The sort of pedestrian decisions you make every day. What the British Empire would do is, just going to invade some shit, and that's what they did, and they invaded the world. So that they were there on the southern border, and on the northern border you have a country called China, which is not sedentary either. It's not, you are next to people who like to invade things.
They like stuff.
Yeah, they like to have stuff.
And places.
And Bhutan resisted this for centuries. So, what I'm trying to say, it's not a hospitable place. And so, part of the reason why this mountain hasn't been climbed is that it is difficult, but also because Bhutan is the world's only Buddhist theocracy.
Okay.
It's a very Buddhist place, and it's against their spiritual rules to be climbing stuff and hiking and generally spoiling the nature. So Bhutan kind of pioneered the concept of the Human Happiness Index, where a prosperity of the country isn't judged by its economic growth or its literacy rates. The prosperity and success of a country is judged by its happiness. And to protect the happiness of its people is in Bhutan's constitution. It's slightly different from the U.S. Constitution. It's not the guaranteed pursuit of happiness. It's not like the U.S. Constitution says, we will guarantee your right to try to be happy. Which, when you think about it, is not a great promise, really. I mean, you can get out of that one very easily.
Mm-hmm.
What Bhutan's constitution says is, we will make you happy. You will be happy whether you like it or not. And some people don't actually like it, and we'll get into that later. And in this respect, Bhutan is unique. Historically, kind of verged between like kingdoms, then tiny little feudal duchies. 19th century, it was unified under one kingdom, and that family still rules to this day. Bhutan only embraced democracy in 2008. Up until then, it was first, as I said, a Buddhist theocracy, then it was a monarchy with a strong Buddhist undertone. Now it is a constitutional monarchy. Bhutan now has two parties. One is a conservative party, and the other one is a royalist party, and apparently there's a difference. But they have democratic elections. Bhutan is also fiercely protective of this happiness. It only allowed television in the country in 1998. Social media has just been allowed, but there is still big opposition to it because they feel people misuse it and use it to do unproductive things that add value to no one. So it's an odd place. And it has historically an odd relationship to the dissemination of information. For instance, the original, what you want to call it, Buddhist king, if you will, the Dragon King is the name for it officially, who to unify Bhutan, when he died, the government, or the rulers, withheld that information from the public for 54 years. And no one found out.
But okay.
Right?
But everybody's happy. So what does it matter?
Not everybody is that happy. Because of this fierce pursuit of happiness, they enforce some very strict rules.
Okay.
The no TV thing was an example. The no democracy thing is another example. They like tourism, but it's strictly regulated. You can only enter Bhutan if you pay £250 per day, which limits tourism and only ensures you get a lot of money from it and keep the numbers low, because they don't want people roaming around. They want to protect the natural beauty of their country, and they don't feel what's the point of tourists. They don't understand the point of tourism as such, because just enjoy your country. I mean, it's a completely different mindset, which also means that they enforce ideas. They enforce the way people dress, etc., which doesn't quite sit well with part of what you would used to be So Bhutan has a troubled past. It had an ethnic minority, the Lot Shampas, that formed 1/5 of the country. Now, they refused to comply with the regulations.
Okay.
Which led to Bhutan in the 1990s revoking their citizenship and forcibly expelling them into Nepal. They just literally kicked them out of the country for not wearing uniforms. Which sparked a huge refugee crisis. Over 100,000 people. Bhutan total population at that point was about 500,000. So we're talking, as I said, 1/5 of the population. 100,000 people all of a sudden went to Nepal, and it's taken to this day. There's a whole UN program to relocate them into other states. And to this day, some of them are still displaced in Nepal and are waiting. I mean, it's set to finish next year, the program, so most of them have been relocated. But it was a massive humanitarian crisis because they refused to conform to happiness. They just refused to be happy. So, for all you emos out there, first, get a haircut, and B, don't ever go to Bhutan.
Let's say you're not going to be traveling there anytime soon.
finally, another interesting tidbit before going into the news. Guess what the national sport in Bhutan is?
I would say Tai Chi.
I'll give you another go, and I'll remind you that this is Skyrim country.
Alright, so if it's Skyrim country, dragon wrestling?
Okay, you kind of overshot that one, but it's archery. No, it doesn't sound that great after you said dragon wrestling.
I thought Tai Chi, monks, okay, and then you told me no because of Skyrim, so I went, okay, it must be dragon wrestling.
I forgot, people from Alabama are listening. There are no actual dragons in Bhutan. They use the terminology, but don't go to Bhutan to hunt dragons.
See, what's Donald Trump Jr. going to do? Somebody told him there were dragons in Bhutan, and, he's got his...
So, Donald Trump Jr., there are dragons in Bhutan, so why don't you go there? And see what happens. Maybe you can hunt some dragons. See? Sorted. Right.
Alright, so we're living in a world of happiness, so the news must just be all cheery and just great. I mean, there can't be any bad news.
It is. This is the thing. I mean, I remember years ago I went to a vegan cafe in Soho, and it was good, and they had a publication there called Happy News. And what it does is it refuses to print any bad stories.
Okay.
So the whole thing was just good stories. And I like that. And I haven't thought about this episode for a long time until 6 months ago when I was researching this story. And it was like reading Happy News. So, okay, the biggest news currently thing happening in Bhutan. They've launched an environmental conservation initiative.
Okay.
Of a country that barely has any industry and no tourism. They've launched an initiative to conserve their environment, which is just... it just made me go, oh, that's lovely. Then the other thing is they played their Asian Cup qualifiers against Oman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a group stage thing, so you play each country twice. In the story leading up to this match, it basically says, right, the first leg in Oman we lost 14-0. But our stadium is like really high up in altitude, so we're going to try to give them a proper go now. And it's just delightfully written. It's kind of said, well, the result is not going to make a difference, but it's going to be an intense match, etc. They lost 4-2.
So first they got their ass kicked 14-0, and then they did come back to 4-2. That's not too bad.
That's not too bad. And the way the articles, we made them work really hard, and we scored some amazing goals. I mean, we scored goals. This is the happiest loss I've ever read about. Then there is then there's one big editorial in their one of their main leading newspapers against social media about how anonymity makes people post bad things that don't contribute to happiness, and we should enforce a rule. The editorial calls for Bhutan to enforce a rule that everything you post on social media should be educational and or constructive in some way. They want to ban the posting of... Basically, there's a 2-paragraph rant against selfies and food selfies. That is not a productive way of using one's time, and this should be banned. Bhutan, there's a leading newspaper editorial in Bhutan wants to ban selfies. And I find myself here going, you go, girl. You go, girl.
How did I know you'd be all for that?
The Prime Minister...
Yes.
Second to last story, don't worry. The Prime Minister made a speech in Parliament saying that, declaring that Bhutan has more jobs than people that need employment. So there's no unemployment in Bhutan.
They're actually negative in unemployment.
Yeah, there are more jobs than there are people to fill them. And he didn't. But another country would go, okay, so we need to bring in immigrants to fill jobs. No, he said that's a great thing because we don't have to worry about resilience. Even if we lose some jobs, we still have plenty for our people. They're not even considering bringing others. They're just kind of like, great, fine, we don't have to worry about unemployment for a while now. Let's crack on with other happy things. I'm beginning to think that Bhutan is basically, after the events of Snow White, the 7 dwarfs just sort of went hiking and found themselves in Bhutan and started a country. This is hey ho, yeah.
Off to work we go.
And that's what morning in Bhutan is. And my favorite story.
Okay, from the happy place.
From the happy place. And we talked about, that awkward kid that always adopts the fad a bit too late.
Yeah.
So, rap is quickly gaining popularity on the Bhutanese music scene. And there's a whole sort of a feature on artists saying how it sort of unlocks their creativity and how it's an exciting new genre for Bhutanese music. Rap.
What's gonna happen with the Sugar Hill Gang gets in there, dude?
Can't wait for the boy bands in the 50s when they come in, or dubstep in the late 22nd century. But anyway, that
was Bhutan. Huh?
Just talking about it made me happy.
The happiest place on earth is not Disneyland, it's Bhutan.
Apart from the forceful removal of a fifth of its population for refusing to be happy.
Well, you know what? They didn't want to be happy, so they basically said, come along for the ride or don't come at all. And just threw them out the door.
It's a place that kills dragons. Can't be invaded. They don't even have an air force.
They don't need one.
No one. You go. You're an army. You look at it. That's fucking steep. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, fuck that noise.
Yeah. They fight dragons. Their entire purpose is happiness. They want to ban selfies. And rap is just becoming popular. I love this place. I want to keep it. I want a stuffed Bhutan just to sleep with.
Why don't you move to Bhutan?
You can't emigrate to Bhutan.
Oh.
And you can go as a tourist, but again, I don't have £250 a day to spend.
Yeah, no sure.
I could literally just spend a day in Bhutan. Also not sure what the craft beer situation is. But something tells me Brewdog hasn't opened up in Bhutan yet.
No, I don't think our friends at Brewdog have made it to Bhutan. Although that might be on their list of places to go because they want to make the world happy. All right. Well, again, be sure to go over to jsbspod.com and you can see links to all the stories that we talked about today. Head over to Facebook, facebook.com/JSBSpod. You can find us on Twitter @JSBSpod, Instagram JSBSpod, and head over to Patreon, patreon.com/JSBSpod. If you'd rather just send us a one-off to pay for hosting fees and all that other nonsense, you can do that via PayPal. The email address is jsbspod@gmail.com, and you can also use that email address for all litigation that might need to take place in care of the beer doctor when it comes to rights and royalties for music, and everything else apparently goes to me.
A pre-recorded reply to all litigations is it was the Russians. The Russians did it. We were hacked. I feel hacked as I speak. I feel hacked by the Russians. It's in my throat. All the hacking. Is that how it works?
That's how it works.
That's probably how the Theresa May thought process was. I'm going to say that there's my throat has been hacked. by Russians, and then someone probably said, "Now settle down."
Allegedly.
Let us rework that slightly.
Allegedly.
She must have been so excited standing there saying, "We've been hacked by Russians. Look at me. I'm going to go to a rap concert now."
Allegedly.
And after that, we could all have a session in my sex dungeon in the basement.
On that note, that is roughly 2 hours of your life you're never gonna get back.
Stay strong.
A man in a trench coat in the dark. A woman's lost a kid sleeping in the park. Rag suits, daggers, Park Avenue. Everybody wants to talk to you about just some BS of there. Just some BS. Just some BS of yours. Just some BS. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS of ours.